Okay, so thank you guys so much for joining a brand new series, which is really, it's new, but it's not so new, because the truth is last year we had a couple of these classes in Rabbi Tugendhav Shul Erev Shabbos, and so we already began, I think we had 6 or 7 of those shiurim, and so this is a continuation of it. The only thing is for the Chaver who are going to be following this series online, only the audio was posted on SoundCloud, so we're going to miss the first 7 episodes on YouTube, but hopefully the audio will be available. But we are going to continue from where we left off that series. I'm not going all the way back to the beginning. We're going to continue from where we left off. And like I said, in the first episode of that part of the series, when we actually began on those Erev Shabbos, or Erev Shabbosim, so we said over there that Kesser Shem Tov is an early collection of the Baal Shem Tov's teachings. The Baal Shem Tov himself did not write the Sefer. The Baal Shem Tov didn't write much of anything. All we have really from the Baal Shem Tov is a letter, a few letters, and that's really about it. So the Baal Shem Tov's teachings were recorded by his primary Talmidim, the Taldas Yaakov Yosef, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polanya, is the primary source, and of course the Maggid Mizrich, basically those two tzaddikim who did write and wrote many svarim, and in the case of the Maggid, his teachings were recorded in tens, if not hundreds, of different svarim of all the tzaddikim that he impacted in turn. So you can trace all the different teachings that they're quoting directly from the Baal Shem Tov, and that's what the Baal Malakit of Kesser Shem Tov did. I believe 3 generations after the advent of Chasidus, he went through those early Svarim and he collected all the places where they said Meha Baal Shem Tov. So these are direct teachings from the Baal Shem without any embellishment or elaboration by the other tzaddikim. So it's really core, and that's why this series, of course, is going to be titled Foundations of Chasidus. Okay, so each teaching is sort of contained, and we're not going to learn every single teaching in the Sefer because we're trying to find the pieces that are directly applicable to our experience. Many of the teachings are incredibly deep and require a lot of foundational hakdamos, introductions to Kabbalah, and other things where it's just like an interesting revelation, but it's not clear what we're going to take, and the whole thing of Chasidus is, of course, that we should bring it lo'uv de l'maisa. So sort of just be something you learn intellectually, but it should be something that we're able to apply and integrate into our worldview and our experience of Yiddishkeit. So let's jump in. We're taking a look here at Kesser Shem Tov, Chaf Gimel. And the tzaddik says like this, a very emblematic teaching. It's really 2 teachings from the Baal Shem. Bir Mishna. He explains the line in the Mishna in Ksubis, first parak, Re'u medaberes em echad b'shok, where the Mishna over there is speaking about, good morning, Rav Zalman, thanks for joining. Good morning. Could we pass a sheet down to, or is that what we have over there? Yeah, in the middle. So the Mishnah brings a machlokes about a case of a woman who is miyachid herself to somebody that we have a chashash is going to make her puzzle to marry a kohen afterwards. Somebody who's not Yavi Bekal Yisrael. And there's a euphemism used in the Mishnah, that she's speaking with somebody, but the Gemara makes it very clear that not just speaking with somebody, she was miyachid with somebody. And there's a machlekes there between the Tanaim whether or not she is neman to say that no, this was actually a kohen or this was actually a person that was kosher. Whether we rely on her and she has a cheskes kashrus, or whether she has to bring a raya as to the nature of the person that she was miyachid with. That's what's being referred to here in the Mishnah in Ksubis. But the Baal Shem Tov explains this in a much deeper level. Al pi soid, or even soide soid, if you think Chasidus is an extension of Kabbalah and a deepening of Kabbalah. See, he says al pirish ein daime shoyne pirkei mea pa'amim l'shoyne pirkei mea pa'amim ve'echad. Makes reference to the Baal Shem Tov's other derech and his other pirish on the Gemara in Chagiga that says you cannot compare a person who learns something 100 times to a person who learns something 101 times. And this is one of the main foundational teachings of the Baal Shem. Some of us may be familiar with this. But the Baal Shem Tov asks, and this is not the main place, he's just referring to the teaching the Baal Shem Tov brings elsewhere, why is the Lashon not super clear? Really, to be more economic, the Mishnah, or the Gemara rather, over there would say that Ein doime shoyne pirka me'av pa'amim l'shoyne pirka me'av ve'echad pa'amim. You can't compare someone who learned something 100 times to someone who learned something 101 times. It doesn't say 101 times. It says 100 times and 1. Right? So it seems a little bit strange. Ordinarily, we'd say, Mea ve'echad pa'amim. What's Mea pa'amim ve'echad? So the Baal Shem Tov over there explains Pirish, just 2 words in classic Baal Shem Tov style, that changes the whole nature of how we understand Chazal, how we understand Psukim, how we understand all of Yiddishkeit. He adds these 2 words, Im ha'echad. Where it turns out that the Gemara is not saying that there's a distinction between someone who learns material 100 times or 101 times, but Gavalt says the Baal Shem Tov, you can't compare a person that learns the same thing 100 times without Hashem and 100 times Im ha'echad with Hashem. It's not referring to 101 times. It's referring to the same thing 100 times, but Im ha'echad. Mea pa'amim, but ve'echad, that the echad yachid umiyuchad, dveikus and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. You can't compare a person that learns without the conscious experience of the Malamed Torah La'am Yisrael of Hashem, and a person that recognizes that all the learning is just an encounter with the divine. So the Baal Shem Tov wants to lift that interpretation of echad in that context and to apply it here, and over here it becomes much more deep. Because of Zayuvan, now we can understand on a much deeper level. Ra'u medaberes im echad b'shuk. What does it mean on a simple level? Again, al pipshat. We saw that she was speaking to somebody, and it's a metaphor, that she was miyachid with somebody. But on a simple level, she was speaking to someone. Im echad, with a person in the shuk. Says the Baal Shem Tov, no, that echad, al pipnimi is referring to the same echad of mea pa'amim ve'echad. It's referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
It changes a negative into a positive.
Also, right. Also a negative into a positive. But what does it mean al pipnimi? See, he says, pirish ki gam b'shuk. Even when a person is in the marketplace of life. Sha'oisik be'asik, and a person is with the in business. But what's the forgetting the be'asik olamazeh, yeah. Be'asik olamazeh, when a person is involved in this worldliness. So it's not just shuk like if you're in the marketplace, doing business, but anything relating to this worldliness, to mundanity. A person has basic responsibilities that we have in order to just live a physical life. Mikol makom diburi im echad. Says the Baal Shem Tov, all the while that a person is conscious that Hashem is not just in the Beis Medrash, Hashem is not just in the shul, Hashem is not just in overtly holy places, but meloi chal haaretz kevoidai. Religion is not a part of our life. Our life is mamish subsumed within this experience of getting closer and closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, deepening our emunah, recognizing there's Hashem in everything. Says the Baal Shem, this is made possible by this Mishna in Ksubis, Ru'u Medaberes im Echad b'Shuk, that it's possible to be in the Shuk and at the same time to be talking Medaberes im Echad, to constantly be in a dialogue with Hashem, speaking to Him and in return hearing His messages to us as well. Okay, that's the first teaching, Kesser Shem Tov Chav Gimel. We move on to the next piece, Kesser Shem Tov Chav Dalid. And again, he brings Mehabesht from the Baal Shem Tov. Bir Shas, he explained the Gemara in Brachas that says, La'olam yei adam raga loymar, a person should always say, and the Lashon is not exact, but Kol ma da'avdin, it's really Kol ma da'avid rachmana, it means Kol ma da'avdin min shemaya l'tav avdin, or avid. That anything that happens in a person's life, l'tav avid, it's for the good. Ukahu Maisa the Rabbi Akiva, and as the Gemara explains the whole story with Rabbi Akiva, right? It was out with the candle and the donkey and the whole story over there, where every time he said Kal Ma'adav Rachmana L'Tav of it, and it turned out to be good because in the end, right, there was a band of murderers and they couldn't find him, right? Because the donkey wasn't making the noise, because it died and the candle was put out, etc. Then he says B'Shas the Tainus. But in another place in Shas, in the Gemara in Tainus Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph, we learn about Nacham Ish Gamzu, who is constantly saying, no matter what happens, Gamzu L'Taiva, this is also for the good. So obviously there must be some distinction. Means why in one place is there the Lashon Kol Mada Avid Rachmana L'Tavavid, that everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does is for the good, and then Nacham Ish Gamzu was saying much more seemingly specific thing, Gamzu L'Taiva, Gamzu L'Taiva. What's the distinction between these two things? So he explains that the whole thing is lematik hadinim b'sharshan. That these two tzaddikim were attempting to see every encounter with din, with the concealment of Hashem, with gevura, with severity, as actually being rooted in chesed. As we know, the pasuk says, Ki gavar aleinu chazdai. That anything that we experience as being gevura really is rooted in chesed elyon, in the chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And their job, and this is really the job of a Yid that really believes in Hashem, means that you believe in the Echad, Yachid, Umiyuchad. You believe that there's nothing other than a Kodesh Baruch Hu. And that means that every encounter with difficulty, with challenge, with lack, we spoke yesterday, the Arsa Tshuva Shir, with descent, with Yerida, is also filled with godliness and therefore with goodliness. And that's the job of Emunah. Emunah isn't just when things are going well, L'hagid b'boker chazdecha. Emunah means ve'emunascha dafka b'leilos. Dafka when things are difficult. That is when we stand up with our mission of revealing the light of monotheism in the world. That's what monotheism means. It means that even this is filled with a Kadosh Baruch Hu's presence. Right? That's the essence of Emunah. And so the way that he's learning it over here is that these two tzaddikim were on this journey. Difficult things that happen, they wanted to sweeten the din by, to use a modern psychological term, by reframing it. That's exactly what reframing means, right? I think, right? We have our psychologist par excellence here, right? To learn around, to look around, to turn around and look back at things that happen in life and be able to see them as part of a greater narrative and to build a narrative around it where it's woven in to having actually been a positive, right? And so that's something that, secular society is discovering today, but this is the essence of Yiddishkeit. Lematika din bisharshay, to recognize that, no, look deeper, look beyond. It's flowing forth from a source of goodliness. See, he says, the way that they try to sweeten the din at its shirish is that there must be some kind of hidden chesed, a silver lining. There must be something positive here. As nimtika din b'shirish, so that if you follow the chain of the din all the way back to its source, well, it's not actually rooted in din. It's actually rooted in chesed, so it changes the whole experience of it. Nasa kol chesed, right? And b'sharish chesed zeh, you find a chesed there, and nasa kol chesed. So memela, the whole dynamic changes. So v'lechein nachamish gamzu, at least according to the Baal Shem Tov in this piece, which was a bit surprising because the other one was Rabbi Akiva, but he says nachamish gamzu was on a very, very high madrega, where he was able, matzah chesed b'sharish hadin, he was able to actually identify what was the specific chesed that sat at the core of this din. He was actually able to come across the thing, right, the real kindness that was at the root of this din, memela v'nasa miyad chesed. But he says stam b'nei adam, he says regular people, which again, in this context, Rabbi Akiva is in that category. Okay, he's teaching for someone else.
Reach the level of my friend Nachamish Gamzu, but everyone should say Kama David.
Okay, possible. So he says, "Masha'in came bestam b'nei adam." Yeah, I think you're right. I think because that's la'olam yehei adam. So he's making a reference to that word adam. So to stam people, she'ein yedei shirish hachesed, that they're not privy to being able to really understand what is the root of this chesed. Mikol makom yehei ragol loymar. Meaning, on a more general sense, not always do I need to know, the exact nature of what sits at the core of this din, but just to have the consciousness of knowing that mistama, there's something good here. I don't know what it is, but to have a more general consciousness to know that there's something good that's happening here. That alone is something very positive, and that alone can change our experience of the chesed. Our experience, rather, of the din, and it turns it into an experience of chesed. Mikol makom yeragal loymar kol da avdin min shemai letav avdin min astam gam she'eni yodea. There's going to be times where we're not able to identify what is good, right? What is the reason that this had to happen? How is this helping me along? But just to say, I believe in Hashem. I believe in Hashem who is good. I believe in Hashem who is all there is. Memela, this is also coming forth from that place. So these are two madregas. If you're on a high madrega and a person sits in good therapy maybe, and then they look back in life, they're able to point out and say, no, wow, gam zu l'tova. That trauma, that experience, that challenge directly led to ABC, made me who I am today. Whatever it is, we're mamish able to trace it. And maybe there's always that work to do. But over here, he's providing more of a general thing. Rabbi Akiva says a person should always be with this consciousness. Kol ma da avra achmanim in shmai letav avdin.
It seems to say that rugged is like a constant, it's like a default position. And then if you're able to, at some point later in life,
to go deeper,
like see the picture looking back, 2020,
right?
Then
Beautiful. It could be also one is like you're saying, one is in the present. And one is retrospective, meaning in the present, we don't have the Yishuv Adas now, to start to sit and to figure out. And also, we don't have the breadth. right? Meaning we don't have, like, time hasn't extended in such a way where we can see the shtalshus hadvarim. So it could also be, it's not, he doesn't say that explicitly here, but it could be that in the moment you say, l'tavavit, kol mada avrachman l'tavavit. And then later on in life, when we do the work, we're able to look back and say, gamzu l'tava. Yeah.
It's a little bit like the difference between Yaakov Avinu and Yosef Hatzadik's reaction when they meet. How Yosef the whole time knew the whole time he was with Hashem, dreams, whatever he was, always was. But whereas Yaakov Avinu said Shema only once they reunited, because I think there's many svarim say he looked back and he could point back and say, now I get it.
Gewaldig.
Yeah.
Gewaldig. I'll bring you another raya to that. It's when the brothers actually find out that this was Yosef, and they're beside themselves, and Yosef said, no, it was all part of the plan. Like meaning Yosef was with it from the beginning. From the beginning, the whole time, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent me, this is all part of a plan. He was able to say, Gamzu l'tayvas. That's a higher madrega. I'm just remembering a story I forgot to say about the first piece, which is about the echad. So it's a story that the Berditchever Rav once used to have. I said this story over in the past. No. There are thousands of stories. No, but there's this particular story is when the Baal Shem Tov used to have all kinds of simple Jews, Pashata Yidden. We spoke on Thursday night about the Tehillim Zagers. They used to come and sit around his Seder table. He used to mamish kol dichvin yesev yechal. He meant it, right? He mamish had hundreds of Yidden at his tish. Simple Jews. And one year he had mamish such a simple Jew that he didn't even understand just like the basics of the Haggadah. Mamish and Amma Aretz, the Araisa, the Rabbanan, and the Seifrim and everything. And it came to the part where they talk about the Arba Banim. And the Lashon in the Haggadah is Echad Tam, Echad Rasha, Echad Chacham, Echad Rasha, Echad Tam, Echad She'en Yedei Lushal. And everybody was saying it together, and this Yid, who doesn't know anything, but he's familiar with like the cultural nuances of Judaism. So the way that he said it was Echad Rasha, Echad Chacham. Like he was saying, like we say by Kriya Shema, Shema Yisrael Hashem Echad. Like elongating the Dalid, because that's what he thought, that when you say Echad in Yiddishkeit, you say Echad, and everyone's laughing. Just say Echad Rasha, Echad Chacham, and he was mamish like he was saying Kriya Shema, like. And the Berditchever stopped everyone, and he said, No. He knows so much deeper than you, because on a deep level, what his neshama is doing is he's finding the godliness within all of these four children. He's saying Echad Chacham, that the Chacham has the Echad Yachid Umiyuchad inside. Echad Rasha, the Rasha also, he's had the spark of godliness inside. That's the Indian of Echad. So also another thing that's connected to this, and we'll go into the last piece. Another thing that's connected is the Mishna that tells us, Al tadanis chavercha ad shetegia lemekaymai. Right? You cannot judge a person until you stand in his place. And a certain level means that there's no way to judge because we don't know other people's relative circumstances. We've never experienced everything that they experience and all the difficulties and challenges that they have, and etc. So kacha, right? There's always that contingency to know, like, maybe I don't understand that person. But the Sfarim say deeper in this vein of finding the echad in everyone, that al tadin es chavercha, we cannot begin to really judge someone else. That word mekoymai doesn't just mean until you stand in his place, but it means until we identify the mekoymai shel olam, which is a reference to Hashem in that person. Ad shetagia lemekoymai shel olam. Right? Once you can identify the pure godliness in a person, then we can start maybe to evaluate, in some sense, other things that need to be fixed or rectified. But we anchor ourselves first in the awareness that every single person is mamish achelik alikamima. Ad shetegia lemekoymai, which is a reference to Hashem, the mekoymai shalayim.
And you can't judge.
And then, right, maybe once you get to that place, so then you can never judge at all. Right? Which is the other Mishnah, which Rabbi Nachman speaks about. Which is have you done or have you done es kol adam lekavschos, right? And that's the same thing. So on the one hand, Rabbi Nachman asks, on the one hand, al tadin, don't judge. On the other hand, have you done es kol adam lekavschos? And the answer is that if you recognize, right, that al tadin acha digiela mekayma, so then memela you're judging everybody favorably, and it's two sides of the same coin. Okay, let's look at the last teaching from Kesser Shem Tov Chaf Hey. And the tzaddik quotes the Gemara Menachos, B'shas de Menachos. Amar Reish Lakish, a confounding Gemara. The Gemara says, top of the Amid, Pa'amim shebetula shal Torah zehu yisoida. There are times when the bittul Torah, when the interruption of Torah, is actually the foundation for the Torah. Is actually its foundation. Tichsiv, and Reish Lakish quotes the pasuk on the end, the very, very end of the Torah, Asher shibarta, the luchas that you broke. It turns out that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was telling Moshe Rabbeinu, thank you for breaking the luchas. What does this mean for us as Reish Lakish? That there's some kind of strange positive sometimes when there's a bittul of Torah, somehow that is its yisoid. Obviously this is incredibly deep, and the Baal Shem Tov says, I don't understand, Hu tamua. What a strange thing. Tell me it's something else, that it's not so bad. Tell me that it has some purpose, but it is literally the foundation of the Torah itself. Hayitachin, right? How could the bittul of something be the foundation of that very thing? I mean, it's yefshar. So he explains like this: in order to understand how the bittul of Torah can be the yesod of Torah, we first have to understand what Torah is, right? Because again, if Torah means to sit by a sefer and learn, so then when you're not doing that, so then it's the bittul of that, right? Says the Baal Shem. So let's reframe and let's relearn what Torah is supposed to be. So Perish Baal Shem Tov, the Baal Shem makes a reference to the pasuk in the beginning of Yecheskel, which is the vision of the Merkava, which we read on Shavuos morning when everybody is asleep, and that's why we read it then, because it's so lofty that the only way you can understand it is when you're sleeping, probably. And the pasuk says, "V'hachayas uratzav v'shoiv k'mari habazak." He witnessed a certain kind of angel called a chaya, which was running and returning, running back and forth like lightning. Did anybody see the lightning last night at 2:40 in the morning? Yeah. First of all, I thought that we were toast because I thought that they dropped a nuke on London. And that's woke me up because I was like, okay, the Russians are here. Like, this whole game is over. I mamish thought we got nuked. And I woke up my wife and I'm like, did you hear that? And then I saw lightning. I was like, forget it, go back to sleep. But I couldn't. I stood by the window probably for a good half hour. I have never in my life seen lightning like this. I mean, it was
close.
It was wild. Mamish wild, okay?
2 seconds after the lightning.
It was amazing. Anyway, so the deep sleepers got a good shluff, but they missed the show. But these angels were running and returning like lightning. Flash, boom, and it's gone. But the tzaddikim took this pasuk that's referring to angels and a vision that Yecheskel saw and said, actually, all of life, v'hachayus means like lifehood, like the living experience of all beings have this dual nature, ratzei v'shoy. That's the nature of life, is that it runs and it returns. And that every single aspect of life, both in the segment of time, which is day and night, both in the segment of place, right, where you have mountains and valleys, both in terms of seasons, you have winter and summer, and then certainly in our own lives, there's times of aliyah, times of yirida, there's time. That's what life is. Everybody knows, right? In EKG, that shows life is that it's going up and down. The minute it flatlines, so then we're finished. And that's what Tzaddik says. The Moshe Rabbeinu was saying to the people, he said, I know I'm going to die because lo yuchal latzeis v'lavai, I'm no longer able to go in and out. Says Tzaddik wasn't speaking about his physicality. The pasuk says that he didn't lose any of his youth. Now his body didn't age. Moshe Rabbeinu was full of vitality. So he says, no, it's talking spiritually. Moshe Rabbeinu knew that it was his time to go because he wasn't able anymore to have on his madrega aliyas and yiridas, because that's what life is. V'hachayas ratzav v'shoiv. That's what life is. It's always a give and take. It's a shakla v'tarya. It's an ebb and flow, and that is life. That tension. So the Baal Shem Tov says that's how things need to be. Because everything by its nature, we spoke yesterday in the aspect of tshuva, everything is filled with this spirit of wanting to return to a more ideal state. And that's what Torah is all about. When a person sits and learns, and a person davens, and a person is in this experience, what's happening is that part of them is full throttle, pedal to the metal. The neshama is trying to rise up. So when a person is eating and a person is drinking, which can also be very spiritual experiences, but generally aren't, right? The asik maso matan, which is certainly a person who's just involved in the business world, whatever that might be. On a certain madrega, that person is not involved in this purely spiritual, purely conscious, active, yearning and rising and journeying toward a Kodesh Baruch Hu. And in that moment, says the Baal Shem Tov, it's good because az nacha neshama miyislavusa. Because in that moment, the neshama is recovering in a certain sense. So it takes a lot of energy out of the neshama. Again, not just if we open a Gemara Stam and read it and whatever, but if a person mamish learns, it takes a lot out of the neshama. There's a bikush, there's a yearning, there's a redifa after something that's absolutely fundamentally unattainable. That Rabbi Nachman calls a level called Kesser, which is, it's Ratzav Shayiv. It's called in the Zohar Kadosh Mati v'loy Mati. You can reach it and then can't reach it. You can reach it, and so then a person is involved in business. The neshama rests a little bit, umischazekes, and it gets re-strengthened, and then lashav l'dveikus yoser elyon. And then when a person comes back into tefillah, a person comes back into hayos that we said in the first teaching that you could always serve Hashem, and Hashem is there, in the shuk, and Hashem is there in everything. That's true. But when a person then is able to return to the realm of the purely kadosh, whether it's Torah, whether it's tefillah, whether it's mitzvahs, whether it's tefillin, but consciously, so then the neshama is able to take back up its tremendous yearning. And once we understand that that's what Torah means, with all of what it encompasses, then we can understand that pa'amim shebetula shal Torah zehu yisoida. This is actually what's supercharging the neshama with the capacity, having tasted further distance from Hashem, to return to yearning, to be involved in something that's kulei kodesh. And the teaching is not just the importance of taking breaks, so to speak, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu programmed into the Jewish experience, times of higher, Kedusha, times of lesser Kedusha. This teaching is important because it reinforces the realization that Liman Torah is about the yearning. That's what it is. Mitzvahs is about the yearning. It's about the leiv. That's the whole purpose is. Once we define it that way, so we say, yes, Bitula Shal Torah is actually Yisaida because it is part and parcel of the experience of Ratzei V'Shoiv. There's running, but then also there are times of returning, but it's only for the purpose of strengthening the running. Zeu Yisaida V'Shoiv V'Achayos Ratzei V'Shoiv V'Havin. And so 3 little tiny teachings from the Baal Shem, but they begin to shift the way that we think about things. They begin to broaden our horizons, deepen our perspectives. Shebzecha to take it into a brand new week. The schus of the tzaddik should stand by us and everybody. And it's a huge privilege to take this journey with you. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you. Shukra. Have a beautiful week. L'chaim, l'chaim.